They handed her an envelope full of money and told her to disappear forever. They believed she would take it and run because that is what poor girls do when rich families throw cash at them. But what happened next made the whole family regret ever underestimating her. Stay till the end because the ending will shock you. Welcome back to the channel. If you love stories about love, betrayal, and justice, hit that subscribe button and like this video because today's story will keep you glued to your screen till the very last second. In a small village where the roads were made of red dust and the evenings smelled of firewood smoke, there lived a young woman named Amaka. She was raised by her old grandmother after her parents died in an accident when she was only 7 years old. Life had not been easy for her. She woke up before the sun to fetch water, she sold vegetables at the market to support her grandmother, and she went to bed every night with tired hands but a peaceful heart. People in the village respected her not because she had money but because of her kindness. She helped the elderly carry their loads, she shared her food with children who had none, and she never spoke ill of anyone, even when life gave her every reason to. Amaka's grandmother often told her that a good name was worth more than gold, and Amaka carried those words in her heart like a shield. She did not dream of riches. She only dreamed of a peaceful life, a roof that did not leak, and enough food to share with those she loved. She never imagined that her simple life was about to change in a way she could not control. One afternoon, a car that did not belong in the village rolled slowly through the dusty road. It stopped near the market, and out stepped a young man in a crisp white shirt, looking lost and out of place among the noise of traders and buyers. His name was Chitty, the only son of one of the wealthiest families in the city. He had come to the village to inspect some land his family owned, but fate had other plans for him that day. As he walked through the market, unsure of where to go, he noticed Amaka arguing gently with a stubborn goat that kept eating from her vegetable basket. She laughed as she chased it away, and something about her laughter caught his attention. It was not practiced or polished like the laughter of the women he was used to in the city. It was real, it was warm, it reminded him of something he did not know he was missing. He approached her and asked for directions, and what started as a simple question turned into a long conversation under the shade of a mango tree. Chitty found himself fascinated by her honesty, her hard work, and the way she spoke about life with so much gratitude despite having so little. Amaka, on her part, was surprised that a man dressed in such expensive clothes could sit on a wooden bench and talk to her like she was his equal. From that day, Chitty began finding reasons to return to the village. Sometimes it was official business, and sometimes it was simply because he wanted to see her again. Their friendship grew slowly, like a small flame that refused to go out even in the wind. Amaka tried to guard her heart, telling herself that a man like him could never truly want a woman like her, but Chitty kept showing up, kept listening, kept proving that his interest was not a passing curiosity. Months passed, and what began as friendship turned into love. Chitty confessed his feelings first, standing awkwardly in the rain one evening after his car broke down near her house. He told her that he had never met anyone as genuine as her, and that his heart had chosen her long before his mind could reason with it. Amaka wept that night not out of sadness but because for the first time in her life someone saw her, truly saw her, and did not care about what she lacked. But even as their love grew stronger, Amaka carried a quiet fear in her chest. She knew that Chitty's family was powerful, respected, and proud. She knew that people like them rarely welcomed people like her into their world. She voiced her fears to him one night, telling him that his family would never accept a village girl with no name, no money, and no status. Chitty held her hands and told her that love was not something that needed permission from wealth or class. He promised her that no matter what happened, he would stand by her side. Despite the warnings from her own heart, Amaka allowed herself to believe in that promise. Chitty proposed to her under the same mango tree where they first spoke, with a ring he had bought using his own savings, not his family's money. Amaka said yes with tears in her eyes and hope in her chest, even though she knew the road ahead would not be easy. They married quietly in the village, surrounded by her grandmother, a few close friends, and the simple joy of people who understood love without needing grand displays. Chitty's family was not invited, not because he was ashamed, but because he knew they would try to stop it before it even began. He planned to tell them after the wedding, hoping that once it was done they would have no choice but to accept it. He was wrong. When Chitty finally brought Amaka to meet his family in the city, the air in the room changed the moment they stepped through the door. His mother, a proud and sharp-tongued woman named Adeora, looked Amaka up and down like she was inspecting an object rather than a person. His sister, Nneka, did not even try to hide her disgust, wrinkling her nose as though something unpleasant had entered the house. Adeora's voice was cold as she asked her son if this was some kind of joke. She reminded him, in front of everyone, that their family did not marry into poverty, that their name meant something in society, and that a girl from a forgotten village could never represent their household with dignity. Chitty tried to defend Amaka, telling his mother that character mattered more than background, but his words fell on ears that refused to listen. Amaka stood there, humiliated, but she did not cry. She had faced hardship before, and she refused to let anyone see her break. She simply held Chitty's hand tighter and reminded herself why she had chosen this path in the first place. The days that followed were some of the hardest of her life. Living in the same house as Chitty's family became a daily battle of silent cruelty. Adeora made sure Amaka knew her place, criticizing everything from the way she dressed to the way she spoke. Nneka mocked her at every opportunity, calling her a village girl in front of guests, laughing at her accent and making comments about gold diggers loud enough for Amaka to hear. Amaka endured it all with quiet strength, believing that time would soften their hearts once they saw how much she loved their son. She cooked meals no one thanked her for, she cleaned spaces no one acknowledged, and she smiled through insults that would have broken a weaker spirit. Chitty tried his best to shield her, but he could not always be there, and his family knew exactly when to strike. Then came the day that changed everything. Chitty was sent abroad by his father for urgent business, a trip that had been arranged rather suddenly, almost as if his family wanted him out of the house at that exact time. Amaka did not think much of it at first, trusting that a business trip was simply a business trip. She had no idea that his absence was the opportunity his mother had been waiting for. With Chitty gone, Adeora called Amaka into the sitting room one afternoon, her voice dripping with false sweetness. On the table between them sat a thick envelope, stuffed with more money than Amaka had ever seen in her entire life. Adeora slid it across the table and told her plainly that this was her chance to walk away with dignity and financial freedom, rather than staying in a family that would never accept her. Nneka sat beside her mother, arms crossed, adding her own cruel words to the offer. She told Amaka that she was doing everyone a favor by leaving, that Chitty would eventually find someone from a proper family anyway, and that no amount of love could erase the shame of her background. She called her ambitious, greedy, and foolish for thinking she could ever truly belong in their world. Amaka looked at the money on the table, and for a brief moment her mind drifted to her grandmother's leaking roof, to the debts she still owed, to the hunger she had known as a child. It would have been so easy to take it. No one would have blamed her, but something inside her refused to let her hand move toward that envelope. She looked up at Adeora and Nneka, her eyes calm but firm, and told them that her love for their son was not something that could be bought or measured in naira. She told them that she had married Chitty not for his money, but for the man he was when no one was watching, and that she would not disrespect that love by walking away for a bag of cash. She pushed the envelope back across the table and stood up, her back straight, her dignity intact. The room fell into stunned silence. Adeora had expected tears or greed, or at the very least hesitation. She had not expected refusal. Her expression twisted from smug confidence into barely concealed rage. She warned Amaka that she had just made a terrible mistake, that pride would not fill her stomach or pay her bills, and that she would soon regret refusing their generosity. From that day, the treatment Amaka received grew even harsher. Ajora cut off her allowance completely, refusing to let her touch a single naira of the household funds. She instructed the staff to stop assisting her, leaving Amaka to cook, clean, and manage everything alone, as though she were a servant rather than a wife. Nneka spread rumors among their social circles, painting Amaka as a manipulative gold digger who had trapped Chidi through trickery, ensuring that when Amaka stepped outside, she was met with judgmental stares and whispered insults. Amaka endured this storm in silence, writing letters to Chidi that she was too afraid to send, not wanting to worry him while he was far away. She leaned on her faith and on the memory of her grandmother's teachings, reminding herself daily that storms do not last forever, no matter how long they feel. During this difficult time, an old woman named Mama Ijoma, who had worked as a housekeeper for the family for over 20 years, began to quietly show Amaka small kindnesses. She would leave food outside her door when the rest of the house pretended she did not exist. She would offer gentle words of encouragement when no one else was watching. One evening, after witnessing Nneka humiliate Amaka in front of visiting guests, Mama Ijoma pulled her aside and told her something she had kept hidden for years. She revealed that Ajora's own family had once been far from wealthy, that the fortune the family now displayed so proudly had actually come from Ajora's late husband's first wife, a woman whose contributions had been erased from the family's history after her mysterious death. Mama Ijoma explained that Ajora had spent years building a new narrative, one where she was born into wealth and refinement, hiding the truth of her humble beginnings and the woman whose sacrifices had built the empire she now controlled. Amaka listened in stunned silence, realizing that the woman who mocked her so harshly for coming from poverty had once stood exactly where she now stood, judged and dismissed by those who saw her as beneath them. She did not immediately know what to do with this information. She was not interested in revenge, only in surviving with her dignity intact until Chidi returned home. But fate, as it often does, had its own timeline. A distant relative of the family, someone who had known the truth about the first wife for years, arrived unexpectedly for a family gathering that Ajora had organized to showcase her status to the elite of the city. During the event, this relative, unaware of the fragile secrets being protected, casually mentioned the name of Chidi's biological mother in conversation, a woman everyone had been led to believe died when Chidi was a baby, without ever knowing that she had actually been pushed out of the family after being falsely accused of infidelity. A lie constructed by Ajora herself to secure her own position as the lady of the house. The room grew tense as questions began to surface among the guests, and Adeora's carefully constructed image began to crack in front of the very people she had spent years trying to impress. Nneka tried to steer the conversation away, but the damage had already been done. Whispers spread through the gathering like wildfire, and for the first time, Ajora felt the same humiliation she had so freely given to others. When Chidi returned from his trip earlier than expected, he walked into a home thick with tension and unspoken secrets. He immediately noticed how thin and tired Amaka looked, how she flinched slightly when his mother entered the room, and how the staff avoided eye contact with him as if guilty of something they had witnessed but said nothing about. He confronted Amaka gently, promising her that whatever had happened, she could tell him the truth without fear. Amaka, no longer able to hold back the weight of everything she had endured, finally broke down and told him everything, from the envelope of money to the daily humiliations to the isolation she suffered in his absence. Chidi listened with a growing fire in his chest, anger rising not just at his mother's cruelty, but at his own failure to protect the woman he loved. He confronted his mother directly, demanding to know why she would try to buy off his wife like she was a problem to be paid away. Ajora, cornered and exposed after the events at her own gathering, could no longer maintain her usual dominance. Her secrets had already begun leaking into public conversation, and she knew that denying everything would only make her look worse. In a moment of raw confrontation, Chidi learned the full truth about his biological mother, about the lies Ajora had told him his entire life, and about the fortune that had been built on a foundation of deceit and stolen credit. He learned that the woman who had raised him was not his real mother, and that his real mother had been cast out unfairly, her name erased from history simply because she stood in the way of Adiora's ambitions. The revelation shattered the image Chidi had held of his family for his entire life, but it also brought a strange clarity. He finally understood why his mother had reacted so violently to Amaka's humble background. It was not about protecting the family name. It was about protecting a lie she had spent decades constructing, a lie that could not survive next to someone as genuine and unshakable as Amaka. Chidi stood before his family, no longer the obedient son who avoided conflict to keep the peace. He declared, in front of the very staff and relatives who had witnessed his wife's suffering, that Amaka had shown more honor and dignity in poverty than his own mother had shown in a lifetime of wealth. He told his mother and sister that their cruelty had not driven Amaka away because her love was real, unlike the fabricated foundation their status was built upon. Word of the scandal spread through their social circles faster than anyone could control. The very people Adora had spent years impressing now saw her in a different light, whispering about stolen inheritance and buried truths at every gathering she attended. Her carefully built empire of respect began crumbling not because of anything Amaka did, but because the truth she had once buried finally found its way to the surface. Nneka, who had mocked Amaka relentlessly, found herself isolated as former friends distanced themselves from a family now associated with scandal and betrayal. The same people she once looked down upon began looking down on her, and she quickly learned how painful it felt to be judged by things beyond her control. As for Amaka, something remarkable happened. Distant relatives of Chidi's real mother, upon hearing that the truth had finally come out, reached out to reconnect with the family, bringing with them not just emotional closure, but also legal claims to a portion of the family's assets that had been unjustly withheld for years. Chidi, standing firmly by his wife's side, ensured that his mother's real history was corrected, and that credit was rightfully given to the woman who had been erased. Adora, faced with public embarrassment and the possibility of legal consequences, was forced to apologize not just to Chidi but to Amaka directly. It was a bitter moment for a woman who had once thrown money at someone she considered beneath her, now humbled enough to admit that character could not be measured by the size of someone's bank account. Amaka, true to the values her grandmother had instilled in her, did not gloat or seek further revenge. She accepted the apology with grace, telling Adora that she held no bitterness in her heart, only a hope that the family could move forward with honesty rather than pride. Her forgiveness, freely given despite everything she had suffered, left an even deeper impression on everyone who witnessed it. Over time, the family began to heal, though the scars of what happened never fully disappeared. Adora, humbled by public exposure and personal reflection, slowly began treating Amaka with the respect she had always deserved. Nneka, forced to confront her own cruelty, gradually softened, eventually apologizing privately to Amaka for the years of mockery and disrespect. Chidi and Amaka's bond grew even stronger through the storm they had survived together. He often told people that his wife's refusal of that envelope was the moment he truly understood the depth of her love, a love that could not be measured in currency or status. Amaka, for her part, never forgot where she came from, using part of the family's restored fortune to build a school in her home village, ensuring that other children like her would have opportunities she never had growing up. Her grandmother, though old and frail, lived long enough to see her granddaughter transform from a village girl selling vegetables at the market into a woman respected not for her husband's wealth, but for her own unshakable character. She often told anyone who would listen that true wealth was never about how much money sat in an envelope, but about the integrity someone carried even when no one was watching. The story of Amaka spread far beyond her village, becoming a quiet lesson whispered among mothers to their daughters, a reminder that dignity cannot be purchased and that love built on truth will always outlast lies built on pride. Those who once mocked her for her humble beginnings eventually learned that the very things they looked down upon, her honesty, her resilience, and her refusal to be bought, were the same qualities that saved her when wealth and status had already begun to crumble around them. In the end, the envelope that was meant to erase her from Chitty's life became the very thing that exposed the lies his family had built their entire identity upon. And Amaka, the girl who once feared she was not enough, became the very reason an entire family finally learned the true meaning of worth. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today, and we will see you in the next story.